You're now watching the Mike Missanelli podcast on the BetRivers Network.
Good afternoon, everybody. How's everybody doing out there? Welcome to the Mike Missanelli podcast, podcast number 168. Thursday, March 7th, 2024, brought to us by BetRivers. And I urge you to download the BetRivers app. It's the easiest way to make a bet. Something catches your eye, like last night, something caught my eye. The Villanova Wildcats were a slight underdog at Seton Hall. And I'm thinking, oh, my God, the Cats are playing pretty well right now. That's a small line for them to cover in relation on how they're playing. And, of course, you know what happened. So I learned my lesson. But that's the way it goes in sports betting with the BetRivers app. It's so convenient. You make a play. You don't have to bet a lot of money. You just have a little fun with it. That's what the great thing about the BetRivers app is. A little later in the podcast, we'll have an interview with the great Kate. That's right, Kate Scott, who does the Sixers games for NBC Sports Philadelphia. A fascinating journey on her media career. So we'll talk about that a little bit. We'll talk about the Sixers and how they are in peril right now. And also a little later, the Iditarod musher, that's what they call them, that drive the sled with the Huskies in tow and the great Iditarod, how an Iditarod musher incurred a 2-hour penalty involving a collision with a moose. That's right. Stay tuned for that coming up a little later. But let's start with the Sixers. All right. They lose last night at home to Memphis. And I just, I can't listen. I know they're without Embiid, but somehow, it is amazing if Doc Rivers was the coach of this team and they lost to the Memphis Grizzlies, even though Embiid's not there. What do you think Philadelphia people would be saying? That damn Doc can't coach a lick. I mean, Nick Nurse can't win a game against the Memphis Grizzlies last night. He watches his team get outscored 34-16 to the Grizzlies, who are without their two most prolific scorers, and John Moran and Desmond Bane. I mean, are you kidding me? How do you get outscored at home 34-16? And I know Kyle Lowry didn't play last night. I get it, the whole bit. But they had the lead. They were in command. They collapsed in the fourth quarter. And they have now slid to 7th place. Now, if you know anything about the NBA, that's not a good spot because that's play-in tournament. Okay? So right now, they're in the play-in tournament, which means they would host a play-in game first against the number 8 seed, which right now is Indiana. If they lost that game, they would have to win against the winner of the 9-10 game, which would be the Bulls and the Hawks. So they would have to win 2 games, but they lost that first one. Now, if they beat Indiana in that first game, they automatically become the 7th seed. If they're automatically a 7th seed, guess who they play in the first round of the playoffs? The Milwaukee Bucks. Again, I don't want to paint a bleak picture here. I'm more of a reality guy. If the Sixers, to me, end up in the play-in tournament where they could most likely have to play 2 games before they get to a 7-game series, what do you think management will do with the Joel Embiid situation? Do you think they would say, well, listen, we're too far. It's too far of a climb now. He's not going to be 100%. Are we better off just shutting him down for the season? I am predicting that that's what you fans are going to get. You're going to get a cast iron pan to the side of the head like you're a cartoon character. At the end, they're going to say, we decided it wasn't prudent to play Joel Embiid since we're so far down the standings, and we're going to point to next year when we have all this cap space and when he's going to be 100% healthy. I'm thinking that's coming. So don't be surprised when it comes, if it comes. Now, I could be totally wrong. And B could come back, be a superhero. Maybe they don't get into the play-in spot. Maybe they wind up with the 6th seed, and they win some games coming down the stretch. But I remind you that the schedule goes as follows. They trail the Heat, by the way, in 6th place. Pelicans at home next game, at the Knicks. Knicks at home, at the Bucks. I don't know. You tell me. Is it going to be enough to rally out of that play-in spot? And if they're in a play-in spot, you got to make a value judgment. And I'm telling you, I'm predicting behind the scenes, they are discussing this, just like I discussed it. And they're saying, is it worth it? And I don't know what their answer is going to be, but I'm just trying to prepare you for that cast iron pan on the side of the head. All righty, we are talking Sixers, and we need to get some deep insights as to what's going on right now. And for that, we bring in someone who could provide us with deep insights. She, of course, is the play-by-play announcer for the Philadelphia 76ers on NBC Sports Philadelphia and does like 100 other things in a burgeoning career. Let's welcome in the great Kate Scott. Hello, Kate. How are you today?
Oh, Mike, it's great to be on with you, my friend. I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Be better if the Sixers had won a few games last few days, but other than that, I'm good.
All right, now I'm confused as to what's going on right now because I buy into their effort. Obviously, they're shorthanded. We know this, and they have to go through some load management with Kyle Lowry and such. So you're not going to get that consistent play. But that was a bad loss last night against Memphis, and there have been a couple along the way. When you see this, all of a sudden you see this team. Okay, they're playing well. They can weather the storm, and then they drop back a couple pegs. Where do you see them right now?
Well, I see them as a team that, again, once they get everybody healthy, I don't think any team in the East or West is going to want to face them. But I think what you just mentioned is the most difficult thing. It would be one thing if it was Joel Embiid was out and everybody else was there. And then Nick had time to figure out, okay, this is who I want in this spot. This is who I want here. But as you see, every game, it's a different guy who's missing. Tyrese Maxey goes down with a mild concussion. Kyle Lowry is out last night because of the load management that's going on right now. DeAnthony Melton comes back. Now DeAnthony Melton's back out. So it's just a rotating cast every single night. So it is so hard to find that continuity. So I think that this team still has a shot to make it into the postseason, but we just need the guys who aren't Joel Embiid to get healthy and stay healthy so that they can find that continuity.
I don't know if he's coming back, and I have a theory that if they drop further and their climb is that much higher, that they have to win 2 games before they even get to a series, whether the organization would determine whether it's worth it. Have you pondered that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, right now, I'm just like everybody else. I'm following along with what Joel has said and what the organization has said. And that's it's not going to matter what the record is. If he's healthy and he's good to go, he's going to come back and play his way to the end of the season. But I'm with you. I mean, I think we feel this way about any athlete in any sport, right? Especially when they're the MVP who happens to be playing for your team. Okay, if they're out of the playoff picture and he comes back for 2 weeks, how much is that going to matter going into next year? Would it be good to build off of that? Okay, yeah, definitely. But let's weigh the pluses and minuses, right? What if he gets hurt again and they're already out of the playoff picture and then that hurts next season as well? So this is where I'm glad that I'm just the play-by-play announcer, where I just get to call what I see and don't have to make these decisions that are way above me. But I'm really hopeful that what they showed us against Charlotte and Dallas over the weekend, it's really easy to forget how well they played in Dallas because of just how badly the loss in Brooklyn felt a couple of nights ago and then the loss last night to Memphis felt. But I don't think I certainly didn't expect them to go down to Dallas with Luka and Kyrie healthy and for them to, from start to finish, really dominate that basketball game. And the score line was a lot, right? They got a couple of touchdowns at the end of the game that made it look a lot closer than it was. So still hopeful, but yeah, I'm not sure what's going to happen.
I think they added some components to definitely make them better than what they were in the middle of the season. But here's the other thing. Like Embiid comes back, and I think that most fans will think that he's going to just put the cape on over the red S. And it's the NBA is difficult, and it's hard to find continuity. So when he even comes back, is it realistic to think that it's just going to blend just like that?
No, I don't think it is, and that's why I'm staying really hopeful. Again, no insider information, but I'm hopeful that the timeline that we have been told, hopefully end of March, that could work out perfectly if it is indeed the timeline. Give him a couple of weeks at the end of the season, right, to find that continuity, and he comes back healthy, not having spent the past 2 months getting the you-know-what beat out of him, and now going into the postseason, they've got that continuity, and he's the healthiest Joel Embiid we've ever seen. I can tell you're rolling your eyes internally.
I believe. I don't know what to believe. I watched the guy a couple of years ago be down and out with a knee injury, and he comes back against the Hawks, and he was back to his dominant self. So I don't know what Embiid I'm going to see. I think it's possible that he does play at an MVP level. I just don't know, and And that's the kind of thing you have to gauge. You have to put it on a balancing scale.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
fear that fans are going to buy into it. Well, he's coming back and we're going to be really viable. And then the
Yeah.
Sixers say, you know what, it's not worth it. And that's a big
And
letdown
that's
for a
why I'm
fan
trying to
base.
temper expectations as well. Anytime I talk to somebody, and that's why I'm, sticking to the hopeful line because we just don't know. Adrian Peterson screwed up everybody years ago when he came back from the ACL 2 weeks later, right? And now everybody is thinking, our dude is going to be the next one to come back 2 weeks after they've had this, Aaron Rodgers this year. I'm going to come back from my Achilles 3 months in. Aaron, I love you, but come on, dude. So we just don't know. But as I think at this point, am positivity. And so I'm sticking to the best case scenario with the reality being that might not be the case.
Here, the cardio factor. Now it's a knee, so it's not like he got on an exercise bike or like. So what are you hearing
Well,
that
he could be
to
on a
keep?
bike, actually.
I'm
He
sorry.
could be on a bike. So here's the thing. So I don't know exactly the procedure he had, but that was the one knee surgery I had. I tore my meniscus back in high school, and that's why my soccer career dried up. I got into this. And the first thing that we were doing actually was on the bike, getting that knee
Oh,
moving
okay.
to get that joint going. So actually, cardio was there before the strength and everything else. So it was really heartening for me to hear earlier this week when they said Joel is lifting 100% of the weight that he was lifting before the procedure. Now, again, there's nothing that can replicate basketball speed. You hear this from every player, even when they get back to practice. You get on the court for the first time and you're like, holy crap, these guys are going a million miles an hour. So that's why, again, if he comes back end of this month, it's March 7th right now, right? So if he comes back in the 20s or even March 30th, couple weeks to get your wind about you, we'll see. I can tell.
Well,
I love your face.
I have no
It's so
idea.
telling. You're like, yeah,
I
Kate,
don't have
you've
any
been doing
idea how this is
Phillies
going to
years.
play out,
Just
which makes it
know.
like a mystery that is worth following. But and I hope for this fan base that he does. It would be a great story if he came back and this team reshaped, was able to eliminate Milwaukee, say in the first round. I mean, that'd be spectacular, and then
I
grab
mean,
this momentum.
yeah, and those are the things that I'm dreaming about. I think it's easy for everybody to forget because the Sixers were such an epiphany at the beginning of the season, right? Everyone was saying Milwaukee, Boston, everybody else in the East, and then they didn't know in the West. And then all of a sudden, it's easy to forget the Sixers beat Boston at the very start of the season.
Yeah.
They've beaten OKC, they've beaten Minnesota, they've beaten all the teams in the West. So yeah, and now we've got Buddy Hield, who I think is going to flourish with Joel back and a healthy Tyrese. I mean, think of that starting five. Is it Embiid, Maxey, Harris, Hield, and Lowry? Like, come on. And then you've got Oubre and Batum. Then that bench is one of the most stacked benches in the NBA. So, yeah, I like to spin positive, as you know, Mike.
Yeah,
so,
I know.
Best case scenario.
And I admire that. So let's talk about you're in your third year as play-by-play. What's the evolution been like for you from year one to year three? Are you more comfortable now, or you have you picked up different tricks? Like, tell me about your evolution from when you first came to Philly.
Well, I can breathe a little bit now, Mike. That first year was an absolute and total whirlwind. I think it would have been for anybody coming to a new city and the biggest job of their career. The stack on top of that, taking over for the man I did and the legend that is Mark Zumoff. And then stack on top of that the fact that I'm a chick. So everyone was like, oh, the chick announcer. We want her on every podcast and TV station. So even in those days, now looking back, where it's like, okay, we've had 2 games. I have today off. I have another game tomorrow. All you want to do on this off day is sleep and do podcasts with people like yourself. But every single off day, it was 2 to 3 interviews with people all over the country because it was important, right? And on top of that, moving across the country, selling our house back in the Bay Area, trying to figure out. So there was so much off the court going on in year one. Al and I joke that it was just survive in advance. And then last year it was, okay, now this is my gig. Let's settle in a little more. And now it feels like I've been here forever and I'm loving being here. So now I'm just wanting to fine tune the craft. People keep asking me, okay, what's next? And I'm like, yo, as you mentioned,
I believe you have reached
8,000 jobs here. I want to get really good at this now that I'm able to just focus on this. So now I'm focusing on the little details of going from a good play-by-play announcer to hopefully in a few years being considered one of the best in the NBA.
I think that you have really evolved with a confidence and a calmness that I see. It's to me it's very noticeable, and that's a tribute to you. So let's talk about like I love your story because I love stories where you work it, and you have worked it from the start, doing this and doing that and climbing up the ladder. And I have just great respect for that because that takes a lot of perseverance. The work that you have to do drives a lot of people out of the business early when you don't get immediate success. But it looked like you convinced yourself that you were going to do everything to rise up the level.
Yeah, well, I knew it was going to be just because of who I am. I knew that I was going to be questioned and doubted just because, for whatever reason, our society thinks guys know more about sports than girls. Okay, I get it. So I knew that from the get go. So, did I want to go into this knowing that I was probably going to have to say yes to more gigs and prove myself again and again and again, where maybe a dude or somebody else would just have to do it once and then people would say, oh, yeah, he's got it. No big deal. And I said, hell yeah, because I love this. I mean, right? You got paid to talk about sports for all those years. You're still doing it. I'm getting paid to now go to Wells Fargo Center and call Sixers games. And I look around and I see people paying thousands of dollars to be there in the building, right? So, yeah, I mean, it was a long journey, but thank you for saying you love the story because I love it too. I've made so many great friends along the way. And that's one of my favorite parts of this. You know, I got to call, I'm rocking my U.S. women's national team jersey, and we've had a bunch of national exclusive of the last couple of weeks. So I got to call a little soccer. And just like getting texts from my club teammates from 30 years ago who were watching me and being like, man, you were a great midfielder and now you're doing awesome call in soccer. Or people who tune into Sixers games all over the place. You know, camera operators that I worked with on some college game in Nevada are like, Kate, you're sounding great. Oh, I love that dunk call.
That's
You don't get
fabulous.
that. You don't get that if at 24 you get the job of a lifetime. And again, you know, everybody in this industry has their own path, but I'm so grateful and fortunate that I'm only 40 years old. And I know to some people that feels like, let's retire tomorrow. But to me, it feels like I'm just getting started. So to have worked so many great gigs to get to this point, and they all prepared me for this. And now I'm just ready to fly.
So you were obviously an athlete.
Yeah.
What moment did it?
Long time ago.
Yeah, but yeah, obviously you were familiar with athletics. So, but then there's a leap of how you want to make that a profession. When did you
Yeah.
figure out that you wanted to make sports media a profession?
I mean, I didn't until Mr. Schmozzle. Shout out to Mr. Schmozzle. We're still in touch in high school. I was literally walking to my administration office to submit my college applications because that's how old I am. We did it with paper, kids. We didn't do it on the internet. And he was like, "Oh, congratulations! Where are you applying to? You know, what do you think you're going to major in?" And I said, I think I'm going to get my teaching credential because my mom taught special ed for years. And I'm still connected to a bunch of my high school teachers because they had such a positive impact on me. And I wanted to have a positive impact on the next generation. And Schmazel said, Kate, that's great. I just want to reflect something to you. You've played 4 varsity sports since you were a freshman. You're on the microphone at our Friday night football games. You do the morning announcements on the loudspeaker throughout the school. You're on the PA mic at our men's soccer games when you're not playing for the women's soccer team. Like, why don't you maybe think about sports journalism of some kind? But again, this was like 2000, which doesn't seem like that long ago, but you know, Mike, it's forever ago. There was this many women on TV and they were all beautiful or former Miss this or Miss that. And I'm a tomboy from the middle of California, small town. I've never done anything with makeup before. I get my shoes from Payless Shoe Source. I'm like, I don't see myself in them at all. So I never put those things together. So it wasn't until that conversation, my junior year of high school, where I was like, oh, sports journalism, huh? And I still didn't know what that was going to look like. And I went to UC Berkeley and majored in communications and tried a bunch of different things. And now here we are.
Well, you knew it before I did. That's for damn sure.
When did you
I
know?
had no idea. I kind of, I didn't know what I was going to do. I just kind of followed a path that I thought would be okay, and that's how it worked out. But coming to Philadelphia is culture shock in a lot of ways for a lot of people that come to the
I
West.
have
When
no
you
idea what
when you
you're talking about.
first got here, did you realize how nuts this fan base could be just by sports talk radio alone? For crying out loud!
Oh, I knew already because you know, Mike, I worked in sports talk radio out in San Francisco for 6 years. Like that was my first little big break that I worked for the 49ers and the Giants and the Warriors radio flagship out there. And the Phillies and Giants had a thing for a number of years, and then Eagles and Niners. So we would always listen. I would tune into the radio stations back in Philly, and I was like, holy cats. Like, I thought our callers were crazy. Okay, it's a different level in Philly. But I've said in some interviews, and I truly mean this, it feels like I've come home because I was always that nut job on the West Coast. Like, all my friends were telling me, Kate, calm down. Let's go wine tasting. It's just a game. And I was like, you guys don't understand. They had everything they needed to win this championship, and they freaking blew it. And it's not easy to win championships at the pro level. So I knew what I was getting into. And it has lived up to its billing, everything and more. And I love everything about it because as an athlete and a broadcaster, so many people would pay to have the experience of what it's like going to an Eagles game, a Phils game, a Sixers game, to have that packed house, to have that rabid fan base every single night, even when the other team sucks, even when the other team's out of the playoff race, even when you suck. But it's still, tonight's the night, baby. Like, let's go. And that doesn't exist in so many places. You go to half-empty arenas. Even in the NBA, we'll go to cities, and I'm like, man, this feels like a bad college game. And that doesn't happen here. Yeah. So how lucky are we?
That Giants-Phillies thing that you bring up is really interesting because I remember who was the left-hander that hit Chase Utley and Utley flicked the ball back at him? Do you remember that? It was a big lefty. I can't remember his name, but he hit him with a pitch, and Utley grabbed the ball and flicked it back to him. I think that was a series of Cody Ross hit like 27 home runs and eliminated the Phillies.
Those were so fun. Sorry, Phillies fans. Those were great. Postseason baseball.
They were. This has been delightful. I really appreciate you coming on. I know you were born in Fresno, but you didn't spend that much time in Fresno, right? But I have a famous relative from Fresno, and I'm wondering if you've ever heard of him. He was the world's greatest accordion player. His name was Dick Contino.
Darren is cracking up. Are you lying to me?
No, I swear to God. Have you heard the name?
Okay, so there's some show about accordions on TV that my dad is obsessed with, and apparently we have a really cool accordion store here in Philly. So 100% I've heard that name because you and my dad would one and the same, Mike. One and the same. He sends me like YouTube videos of great accordion songs that he finds. I'm like, Dad, I love you, man. I got to prep for Sixers Pelicans. He's like, yeah, but Kate, it's 4.5 minutes. Just take a break. The music will soothe your soul. So really, a relative of yours.
Well, I'm telling you, I look back at this. He was
for Christmas a couple years ago. My mom was like, if you freaking buy those for your dad, I'm disowning you as a dad.
No, people. I used to tell people I have this famous cousin. He was like a second cousin. He looked just like my father. He was the Elvis of accordion players. Like he was on Ed Sullivan like 53 times. He would swivel his hips. A really handsome guy. He would show his chest hair and the whole bit. He was really a famous guy. And I used to tell my college roommates, I have this famous cousin. What's his name? Dick Contino. Who the hell have I heard of Dick Contino? So we were watching Happy Days one day, and Ronnie Shell, who played a talent agent on Happy Days, brings up Dick Contino's name, and my roommates went, what? But he's like the pride of Fresno. And from what my family tells me, they were this close to moving to Fresno to join that part of the family. But I was raised a Philly kid, so I lost out on the Fresno experience.
I'll say. Great place to grow up, but they made the right choice out here.
Kate, thanks a lot. We appreciate it. We'll follow this team to the end, and we'll see if they can pull something off, but it'll be interesting. Thank you so much, and continued success to you.
Thank you, Mike. And hey, just shout out to you for being a supporter from day one. I know I wasn't everybody's cup of tea. I know I'm still not everybody's cup of tea, but I keep the kindness receipts. I keep the receipts of the people who have been supportive since I got here. So thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Listen, I have so much respect for you. I really appreciate you coming on. Thank you.
Get you. Talk soon.
All righty. Thank you to Kate Scott for coming on the Mike Missanelli podcast. We appreciate her candor. Sometimes I have a problem with Allah. Allah bugs me sometimes because I know that he is thinking something negatively when he projects it positively because he's an ex-player, and I'd love to hear him try not to be negative. It's amusing to me. But Kate plays it straight. All right, let's move on and discuss your fighting Phils at spring training. And the issue in my head and one that's being talked about is Johan Rojas who is the project that they hope could be the starting center fielder. I think you know my view on it. Baseball's a hard game, man. And if you show an inclination not to hit major league pitching, you need a lot of work to hit major league pitching. So I don't know if you can rub a genie bottle and out pops the genie and makes him a major league hitter without a lot more work. Now, here's the caution for me in spring training, because what they're talking about, what Kevin Long, the hitting instructor, is talking about, is making a transition with Johan Rojas. They're trying to put him through this approach where he puts his hands and legs to work more in concert with each other. And I'm rolling my eyes and I'm going, that ain't easy. That's a fundamental breakdown of a baseball swing. And if you're trying to do that and trying to get his hands and body more in coordination, his hands and legs, then you got a lot of work to do on that's going to have to go beyond spring training. He is 4 for 20 so far in spring training. Now, I'm not a math wizard, but that's 200. So he's not exactly lighting it on fire in spring training as he's going through this transition. So what happens? Well, they're going to bring him up and make him the starting center fielder when he's going through this kind of thing. And you know what happens if you play golf? You come off a lesson in golf, and the golf instructor is trying to get you to swing fundamentally in a different way. And it feels unnatural. And you need many reps and many rounds of golf to get that, if you get it at all. Because the problem is, mentally, you're thinking about it all the time. I got to do this, I got to do that, I got to do this. Now, he's facing major league pitching. I mean, there's not a ball standing on a tee there where you can go through those parameters. I mean, you're in a batter's box, and it's like fire, fire in a hole. You got to survive. So, listen, I hope the kid, I like the kid. I don't think he's a major league hitter. I think he needs a lot of at-bats in AAA. That's just my spin on it. I'm not Kevin Long, the hitting coach. I'm not Rob Thompson, the manager. And I know how badly they want him to be the starting center fielder because it really rounds them off, especially defensively. I get it. And people say to me this, well, you don't really need him to contribute that much offensively. Okay, I got it. But you can't have a guy that's 200 either because he's an automatic out. And that shapes the way the other pitcher is going to face your lineup. So, no, you can't be a starter on a good team and hit 200. You got to sling in more hits than that. And I'm worried that he cannot do that at this point. Now, they bring him up north. He struggles. What is going to happen with the fan base? Even though the rest of the lineup, what you saw in the playoffs, the Phillies have a great lineup, and they're capable of winning with a good offensive lineup. As soon as it got to his spot in the order against Arizona, when they needed him to mix in a couple of hits, the fan base started rolling their eyes. Oh, you got to pinch hit for him. Topper, what are you doing? You got to pinch hit for him. He can't hit. It doesn't matter how good the Phillies are. If that's a glaring weakness in their lineup, people are going to notice. And you don't think that kid's going to feel that kind of pressure? He felt it last year in the playoffs. What happened? Listen, I have the kid's best interest at heart. I think he should start the season in AAA. I think he should get a lot of at-bats. And you're going to have to figure out what you're going to do in left field. And you start Marsh in center, you're not going to lose that much. I mean, Marsh is not a bad defensive player. So I think it benefits the Phillies. And if Rojas gets those at-bats with less pressure than big leagues, you can maybe call him up in June and then implement the plan. That's all I'm saying on that. Let me bring in Darren because, listen, I have definite opinions on baseball. I think I know the game a little bit. And maybe people are listening to this and go, you don't know what you're talking about. Darren, your opinion.
No, it's tough because he is an automatic out, and it's almost like you're having a pitcher back in the batting lineup. Especially when you got Pache who's hitting the ball a little bit right now. There's some guys that are putting some pressure on Rojas, and he's just a liability still at the plate. He needs more at bats. I agree with you. Let him start the season at AAA and see how he does.
Now, I don't know about Pache. I have no idea. I mean, you're not going to overnight turn into a solid, a regular major league player. At best, they would probably have to platoon him. But that means Cave would get the majority of at-bats because the majority of the pitchers in the league are right-handed. So unless Pache can be an everyday left fielder, that's a little wrinkle in the plan here to play Marsh as the everyday center fielder and have Rojas in the minor leagues. But we'll see how they figure that out. It's just in my opinion. He's struggling now, and they're trying to put in his head a new batting approach. That ain't easy, man. You're facing major league pitching. This is not like you're going to a rec league or something and working on something. All right. That's my baseball stuff for today. As spring training continues to go, there's going to be a time when we start the season. We're going to actually be talking about the games. And spring training now is just a lull. It's just survival to get to the finish, so we can talk about real games. And that happens to be one of the issues. All right. And the other issue, Taijuan Walker, he's got a bulky knee. That guy scares me. I think that's going to happen with him all year. So that bottom half of the rotation, other than Christopher Sanchez, who's pretty solid, they're going to probably have to wind up finding another starting pitcher. All right, let's move on to the Eagles. The news is Avonte Maddox is released. Avonte Maddox was the Ben Simmons of the Philadelphia Eagles. He got hurt every other game, and he was out for a long period of time. And the poor kid, he's broken up. He's a slight guy as it is.
He wanted to play at least, though.
And he just can't play on every day. So, they saved themselves by cutting. Yeah, I know a lot of people liked him. I mean, yeah, he's all right. He to me, not.
I don't know if it's fair to compare him to Ben.
No,
at least
you can't compare him to Ben, but
play.
Devontae Maddox never plays. When he plays, he's got to be out for 3 games. So in that context, I compare him to Ben Simmons, who, by the way, this just in, he's out for the season. I looked up his salary. My man has made $175 million in his NBA career so far. And he's got 2 years on a contract, and he's hurt, so they're gonna have to pay him that money. I've never seen anybody like this guy. He's an all-time fraud. All right, well, let's continue to talk about the Eagles. We have free agent stuff that we need to talk about here. First of all, it looks like they're going to sign Brandon Graham to a 1-year contract at age 36. I'm not a sentimental man. I mean, that's a fault of mine. And sometimes I can be hard and callous. But when I look at professional sports, it's a hard and callous business. So I don't really know what the advantage of having Brandon Graham back, other than, okay, he's a leader. And, he was a leader last year, and they lost 6 or 7 games. So I don't know if that's overvalued. Now, I guess they're thinking, all right, Kelsey retired. Cox apparently is going to retire. They got to have somebody in there. And I don't know that you have to. I think, to me, a leader is a guy who has to play and still can contribute as a player. And Brandon Graham can contribute like 1 play every 30. So I don't see where it's that beneficial to have a guy just on the sidelines to have his presence there. But that's me. They're probably going to bring him back for a 1-year deal. They get sentimental like that. So let's look at the Eagles free agents. And Darren, I want to ask you whether you would commit to the Eagle free agents. First of all, you got Jack Stahl. Would you re-sign him?
I mean, if you have no other backup tight end, sure.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you can't go. He's
a fine backup tight end. He's a good
fine backup. You won't pay him a lot of money. He can block a little bit. You use him in that capacity. All right, 2 offensive linemen, Sua Opeta and Jack Driscoll.
You kind of have to.
Both of them?
Really, yeah, you have to. I mean, Driscoll, I think, is a little more versatile than Opeta. And Opeta really struggled when he had to play this year. You've got Tyler Steen, who I think will be going into his 2nd year as a backup as well. But I think Opeta, if they let go, I would be fine with. But Driscoll, I think you have to keep because he's a little versatile. He can play guard and tackle if needed.
All right. Let's get to the running backs that are free agents. The big name is DeAndre Swift. Would you re-sign him?
Absolutely. I think he's a low mileage guy throughout his career. And I saw a lot of bursts out. He looked like he had fresh legs last season, and they stopped giving him the ball in the last quarter of the season for some reason.
All right, here's my question. Why? why would they stop giving him the ball? See, it's one thing you look at the other show, oh, he can do this, he can do that. The Eagles didn't use him. They really didn't use him to the extent they should have used him. So maybe they don't think that much of him. And they're going to have to pay him $10 million. I don't think he's coming back.
I'm not giving him $10 million. If he wants $10 million,
he's going to get that from somebody. He's going to get 8. He's going to get 8 to 10 from somebody. He got 8 last year for crying out loud.
I don't think he gets more than 5 or 6.
All right. So if he's at that price, you're signing him.
At $5 million, I'm signing him. But if he wants 10, I'm going after Barkley.
All right, Boston Scott.
It's been real, Boston. I know you love to play against the Giants, but that's about all you got in the
All right, let's look at the wide receiver position. Quez, Julio, Zacchaeus.
No.
And how about Penny?
No, he couldn't get on the field. He couldn't get off the practice squad last year.
Okay. All right. Quarterback. Oh, I know you love Marcus Mariota.
No. No, Mariota.
Okay, so you're telling me that you're okay with the main backup being Tanner McKee.
I would be more successful as the backup quarterback than Mariota.
You always divert the question.
Yes.
Forget Mariota. I understand you don't like Mariota. You're there. Your backup then would be Tanner McKee.
I'm fine with that.
You
Over
are?
Mariota, yes. Over Mariota, yes. But I do think they're going to draft somebody or maybe sign. There's a decent amount of backups out there.
There are, and one of them is Jacoby Brissett.
I would be fine with that.
Okay.
I think he's got a big arm. He's a little limited in his mobility, but he's got a big arm.
Let's go into the linebacker situation. Would you sign Zach Cunningham?
You might have to. I would not. I'll say no. I think they need to completely, with the exception of Kobe Dean, because he's young, and if he puts a little more lead in his ass, he could play. I would, other than Nakobe Dean, I would get rid of every linebacker on the roster.
All right. So you would also get rid of Justin Evans and Sean Bradley.
Justin Evans is not an NFL player, so that's correct.
And Nicholas Morrow.
Yes, Nick.
Okay, so they're all gone. All right, so let's look at some free agents that may be attractive and help the Eagles. Let's just look at linebacker. I don't know how committed they are going to be at linebacker, but here's some names. Like Patrick Queen is a big name. Now, he's going to make a lot of money.
That's the guy I want bad.
Yeah, but I don't think they're going to go after him. So they'll probably do what they always do, a lower-priced guy. So here are some lower-priced names. Eric Kendricks. Jordan Hicks. Would you bring Jordy back into the fold?
No.
Levante David from Tampa Bay.
No.
Andrew Van Ginkel, who played last year for the new defensive coordinator.
I will say they will sign him because
Andrew Van Ginkel will be an Eagle.
Van Ginkel. Yeah, I think they'll sign him. Yeah.
Safeties, Eddie Jackson, Budda Baker, Xavier McKinney, who's a young guy, Justin Simmons in Denver, and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson.
I think they will sign 2 of these 4. Xavier McKinley, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, Justin Simmons, and Eddie Jackson. They will sign 2 of those 4.
All righty. We'll see if that happens.
Here's my plan, by the way. I want McKinley. I want Patrick Queen. I want Saquon Barkley. And I want to trade for L'Jarius Sneed. Everything else you fill in the draft. They have the money.
Yeah, they're not going to do that.
I know they're not.
Okay.
That's what I would do.
All right, everybody have a great rest of the day and have a great weekend. And we'll talk to you next week on the Mike Missanelli podcast. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.